But they didn't do that, partly because they wanted, and this is parallel number 5, they wanted to introduce a new monetary system. So back then we went from being on a retail gold standard to a fiat system. So you used to be able to take physical paper currency or your deposits and exchange them for gold or silver at a fixed rate. The New Deal not only broke that link. To make sure that it was broken, it confiscated all the monetary gold in the country. It wasn't quite like the Grinch, stealing every single little present in Whoville, because they made some exceptions for jewelry and for numismatic coins of collector's value. But those were really minor exceptions, and there was no way that the stock of gold left with the public could have supported a continuation of like an illicit underground retail gold standard. So they effectively killed that. But they said, we're still on the gold standard, though, a gold exchange standard, because we're still going to allow gold to flow in and out of the United States, but just in and out of the Federal Reserve, not out of individual accounts.
And why was that beneficial for the purposes of the New Deal? Like, what was the logic behind that?
Well, it gave them more monetary policy discretion. So the whole idea had because now they're controlling when and how much gold can flow in and out of the Federal Reserve. Under the old system, individuals are making that decision. Yeah, I'm going to
via the market.
Via the market, yeah. This way, your monetary policy, as the economists say, is exogenously determined. It's determined by market forces. By turning to fiat, it gives the power to the federal government. Now, with this little wrinkle in the U.S. case that the Federal Reserve is like partly owned by commercial banks, and back then it was more decentralized and had less power. But a little bit later on, in 1935, the federal government increases the power of the Federal Reserve. And of course, infamously, Treasury basically made the Fed its lapdog until the Fed Accords, in the 1950s. So the Treasury, i.e., the Treasury Secretary, i.e., an appointee of the president, is the one who is determining monetary policy.
Right. And that was different, right? I mean, that was very different than what was happening before. I think that's important to emphasize, is that the market was in control of, how the economy moved. And now here it was like, now we're really going to implement monetary policy, right? Like, I believe that I read that now the Federal Reserve had the power to manage the economy. Is that true? Like, that was put into law?
Well, to try to manage the economy, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
They call it monetary policy discretion, not absolute control. But in the second Great Reset, we see talk of creating a central bank digital currency, which would essentially completely turn over control of the economy to the Fed, because it could make and destroy money at will, and also the distribution of money at will. And it would also give the federal government lock, stock, and barrel, assuming that there's no outside illicit currency arises. It would give the Fed complete control over taxation as well, because there'd be no way to hide any transaction.
Anything.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's it's the next logical step from a fiat system. And of course, I've already argued that I think that while it wouldn't be unconstitutional for the Fed to offer a central bank digital currency as a payment system, because it already has a payment system. It could offer an alternative payment system to make it the sole legal way of making payments, I think would be unconstitutional.
And
Because
a
all
payment system, sorry, but what do you mean by that, Robert? Like a payment system for who?
between banks,
Okay, okay, I see. So not for private citizens, but for banks.
right?
Okay.
And it would really be pushing it if they said, well, all private citizens could only use this. That's when I think it crosses the line into being unconstitutional, because all the forms of money discussed in the Constitution are all bearer instruments. So that means there's a degree of anonymity built right into the instrument, right? Like a full-bodied gold coin was a bearer instrument. All I needed to do would be to give it to you to satisfy the debt. Then you're the bearer of it, and I no longer am. Same thing with
Yes.
Federal Reserve notes, right? If I owe you $1,000, I can count out 10 100s and give it to you, and then that payment has been made. But with a retail CBDC, the government would see that I was giving you $1,000, and then would be able to, inquire, why did you make this payment?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's scary to think about what that kind of regime would look like, right?
Very scary. Yes. Yep. So again, a parallel between the 1930s with the move away from gold to fiat, and then possibly a CBDC